Welcome back to NBA The Block Party, episode 13, NBA Deep Dive. I am joined by the one and only King Wells. How's it going, dude?
It's going good, man. It's going good.
Nice. And I am Jordan, and today we will be discussing NBA playoff basketball. So if you have been with us for the last few episodes, we've been deep diving into everything playoffs. We've touched on some offseason, but obviously since last week, there's been a lot to happen. We have a conference final set now between Miami, Boston, Dallas, Golden State. And we have 3 games played in total, but 2 played in Miami, Boston, 1 played in Golden State. Second game of Golden State, Dallas played tonight. So I'm going to start by saying this. What was your thoughts on the conference semis, just to close it off, because we didn't really get a chance to talk about the conference semis. So let's start with that, actually. Then we'll move into conference finals, and then maybe we can get into some NBA draft stuff, because the draft lottery happened a couple days ago, and we can kind of get into that, some predictions, team placement, what we think teams will possibly do in the offseason. But yeah, let's start with the conference semifinals. What was your thoughts on those? You obviously had Dallas going into this playoffs pretty high on your list. It looks like it's panned out pretty well.
I had him beating Phoenix. I'm proud about that.
So first of all, good job on that, because I didn't see the outcome of that game being like that.
I don't think anybody saw that game looking like that. I thought it was going to be a slugfest.
Well, what do you think? What do you think happened to Phoenix in that game 7?
I think they crumbled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they came out flat, I guess, is the best way to say it. I think Luka jumped on that. And I mean Luka. You know, the Mavs played well, don't get me wrong. But Luka jumped on them. He put his foot on their throat. And they just never recovered. And that's what it looks like. Probably the worst Game 7 performance I've ever seen. Honestly.
That was pretty bad.
I mean, for them to be at home, too. I mean, if this was in Dallas, I really wouldn't be so harsh, but this is in Phoenix. What's the excuse? I know that there's a little bit of talk about Chris Paul maybe being injured, and I mean, it seems like you hear that a lot, but he's also 37, so I'm not going to hold that against him. And it did look like he was injured, so fair enough. But still, you still have Devin Booker there, you still have DeAndre Ayton there. The whole team is nice. The whole Suns team is nice. I don't really think there's an excuse. And I don't think the Mavs are that impressive where they should be winning like Game 7s away by, being almost, I think they were up by like 50 at one point. I mean, that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. Luka had as many points as Phoenix did in the first half. Yeah. Right? I mean, that's the story of the game right there. And props to Luka, major props to Luka. I mean, that's him. We like to talk about Jason Tatum stepping into superstardom. This is Luka stepping into whatever that next tier is, or at least starting to come around. And he did what he should do. I mean, my favorite part of this is when I'm sure you've seen it. You see that clip of Devin Booker going down. I think it was like Game 3 or something. Maybe Game 5, actually. It was in Phoenix. He goes down and kind of just stays down. And you can see that he's just staying down just for the shit of it. And then he gets up. He says, "Oh, that was a Luka special." And from that moment on, the series turned.
Yeah.
And I think that's appropriate. I think that's... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you think... I'm just trying to break it down mentally for Luka. Like, is there a bit of that kind of Jordan-esque? He creates these narratives in his head, these rivalries, these feuds. Like, it seemed like he had a little petty beef going on with Booker the whole series. Like, is that what he's doing to elevate his game to this level? Because obviously, to do this at such a young age, it's funny we drew the parallels last week to LeBron James. But it really does remind me of a young LeBron in the playoffs. Young early Cleveland days, making a playoff push, getting to the conference finals. What is it about Luka? Because I agree with you that, like, if you look on paper, the Dallas Mavericks aren't that kind of team where you would look at a Game 7 in Phoenix and say they're going to win this by 40, 50 points, right? Like you look at that team on paper and you say this is going to be a battle in Phoenix, especially. I personally didn't see them doing it. I expected a big game from Luka. How much of this is we've slept on guys like Brunson and Reggie Bullock and Maxi Kleber and Dwight Powell, and how much of this is that Luka just elevates their game to another level like a LeBron James?
I think he elevated their games for sure, but I think Luka, like one different, like he does the LeBron James comparison is apt, like it makes sense, but one thing that Luka, and I'm not trying to knock LeBron, but one thing that Luka shows me at least more now than LeBron did at that age is like he just seems like more of a killer, like when I say like he put his foot on their throat, like he really did, like he wanted to put them away, he wanted to make a statement, and his scoring, the way he scores, like he just has such a great sense of timing, like the time of the game to take the big shots. And man, he's really turning into something special, something really special. I know that's an understatement, but I just don't know what else to say. But I even with all that, I will say that I think I'm a little more disappointed with Phoenix than I am impressed with Luka and the Mavs. Like honestly, because that was bad.
Yeah, it was really bad.
That was really bad. Like the Mavs and Luka deserve a bunch of credit because it's not about that one game; it's the whole series. But for it to come down to that game, and for them to put up, lay an egg like that, I mean, that's just. It's more. I'm more disappointed with Phoenix than I am impressed. Well, maybe not, but like it's close. It's a question in my mind.
Is there any drastic moves you could see Phoenix making this offseason, or are they looking at this like one bad game out of a successful season /
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, they're kind of stuck. There really isn't much they can do unless they do something drastic like sign and trade an Ayton, or trade a Booker or trade a Chris Paul. I don't really see that happening. Ayton is a bit of a wild card, but I would say their best move would be to keep him, especially. And I'm not trying to rub salt in their wounds or anything, but especially considering they drafted him over Luka.
Well, that's the funny part of all of this is like you go back to that draft and you look at Ayton obviously being the first pick, Luka being the third, Dallas trading up, but the irony in this is that they pass on Luka and he's the one to essentially scorch them in a Game 7 to take away their chances of winning a title this year. So the irony is it's funny, but it's like that's the NBA.
It's not even just that. They at the time they had their assistant coach was Luka's head coach when he was in the EuroLeague. Who was telling them draft this guy.
I remember
draft this guy.
Yeah, I remember that. That.
And you can't even harp on them too much. Like hindsight, it's a lot easier to say stuff like that. But even at the time, there were doubts about Luka, and whether those are founded or were founded or not is another question. But you do kind of understand where they're going. They got this big 7-footer that I think he's from at least a state of Arizona, or he played in Arizona or something. So there's a bit of a
he played there. I think I think that was like part of it. Yeah.
So you can kind of see where they're going, and they have Devin Booker, right? So they're thinking, well, we don't really need another guard, but hey,
I mean, so then you got to obviously weigh the situation at the time. See, like you said, it's all about perspective, and at the time, hindsight's 2020. But with a player like Luka, it was pretty apparent within the first 2 months, would you say, of him entering the league that he was a star. So that's where you're kind of like, damn. And like you said, the coaching thing, I totally forgot about that, but that was definitely on a lot of like just news feeds and stuff I read. I remember seeing that everywhere, that basically their coach was all in on Luka. It obviously could be much worse. You have Bagley at 2 in that draft, and obviously, but if you're Phoenix, you're saying you're a little bit stuck, you're a little bit pinned down.
Yeah.
you're kind of forced to probably play out Ayton, give him a deal.
I don't see why not. I really don't see why not, because even in that game 7, we were both saying they should go hard with Aiden to start the game, which they looked like maybe they were gonna do, but then they just didn't.
Right.
And Aiden didn't play much at all in that game, and maybe some of that is that he wasn't showing Monty Williams enough to stay in the game. I mean, not that there were many Suns that were showing really anything, but I feel like their best, he's a young player. He's a big asset for them. I think it would be a huge mistake to not take advantage of that. And maybe right now taking advantage of that is just signing him to a long-term contract and seeing how he develops and maybe moving him down the line if you still feel that way. But at least right now, it wouldn't make sense not to do that.
And in terms of dicking him around with his money, is that going to come into play here this offseason with what he signs for? Obviously, a team could reach out, offer him a deal. Phoenix could match. Do you think we see anything like that happen because of the money situation?
Potentially. Yeah, potentially, because what Phoenix might do, strictly business-wise, okay? I'm not talking about how this affects chemistry or anything like that, but strictly business-wise, it probably would be a good decision on their part to see what the market offers him. And then if somebody offers him a max, you match it, But if nobody offers him a max, not only does that avoid you paying him a max, but that you can go to the negotiating table with him as well at that point and say, well, nobody's offering you a max, so we're not going to offer you one either. This is what we're going to offer you. Business-wise, might make sense to do that. The catch there would be that DeAndre Ayton could say, well, fuck that. I'm just going to take the qualifying offer, play 1 year, and then I'll be an unrestricted free agent. He could do that. Don't know how smart that would be, but he could do that. You remember, I think it was Greg Monroe did that a while back. You know what I mean? You could do that, but I don't see him doing that. I think that's probably the biggest risk they have in this situation. But
he's not necessarily someone I would label injury prone, especially for a big. I think that's one of those things. He plays a pretty conservative game, where that maybe you could the risk could be warranted for him. I think that would only come into play if he's feeling some type of way about how they handled paying him.
If they lowballed him hard.
Yeah, they lowballed him and they disrespected him, and now maybe if there's some of the blame kind of sliding onto him.
Which honestly, I don't think they will lowball him either. I really don't. I think either somebody will offer him a max and they'll match it, or they'll offer him something close to the max. I don't think they're going to offer him the max unless they have to. But I would be kind of shocked if they didn't offer him, a respectable contract.
He is one of those players that, we've talked about this before, but I don't think he's anywhere close to his ceiling yet. And he's young, and he's a big man who's versatile. But I think one of the most important things I touched on, and obviously injuries can happen at any time, and they're a little uncontrollable. You really can't control some injuries at times. But he seems to play a very, like I said, conservative style game that allows him to stay relatively healthy. Which for a big man can be tough. I mean, obviously with Embiid, this year really was the exception. Jokic is a bit of an exception. You got guys like Cat, who typically are pretty durable throughout the season. Then you got the extreme on the other side with Anthony Davis. So does that play into any, if you're management and you're looking at this situation, does Ayton staying relatively healthy and playing that kind of, not a stupid game, a very smart conservative game, and I'm not saying conservative in him being aggressive, maybe at times, but I mean more so just the way he's playing the game. Does that contribute into any level of confidence that it would give you, giving him more money, that he plays a less injury prone style game? Not that that's really a thing, but obviously if
no, it's a thing.
You know what I mean?
It's a thing, yeah, for sure. That's probably what his agent is saying.
Right. Right. Durability kind of plays into the factor for
100%. 100%. There's a long list of things that'll play into it. Some are big picture things, like what you're saying right there. As far as his injury history and him getting injured. But then some are going to be smaller picture things like his effectiveness in these playoffs.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But and everything in between. There's going to be a whole list of things, and another one of those variables is his interest or the interest that that other teams have in him throughout the league.
Do you think another team, if you could see another team offering him a max deal, who would it be? Is what I'm trying to get at. But
I mean that one's tough because the main reason that's hard is because first of all, not a lot of teams are looking for big men. And second, just the league in general is kind of pivoting, no pun intended, away from that asset.
To an extent, like certain bigs, like you but I agree.
That's what I was gonna say. Like he is one of those that looks like he can kind of
check those
bridge
boxes.
That gap a little bit better than most.
Yeah, right. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
But even then, I mean, like you look at a Miles Turner, for example, and not that that's his ceiling or anything like that, but I would say Miles Turner is more in the league of the big men that's kind of bridging that gap.
Yeah, I agree.
But he's on a great contract right now, and the injuries probably have a big part of doing this, but it's not like teams are chomping at the bit to trade for him either. You know what I mean? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Do you think so? Let's draw this line in the center, and then on the left side we have kind of our elite bigs. We have our Jokic's, we have our Embiid's, we have our Karl Anthony Townses. On our right side, we have more of your typical NBA centers, but maybe more like we could put maybe like a Miles Turner. Maybe we put kind of the less elite side. Do you have Ayton swinging to the elite side as he grows, or do you see him kind of settling more into the skilled, valuable big, like
a
Jonas, or maybe a Vucevic? Like, is that
I would say it looks like he is more on that right side. However, he's still young enough that you can't really put a cap on it yet, and I don't think he's been like unleashed yet either.
Sure.
So I wouldn't be ready to cap it.
Right.
But if I'm sitting there negotiating with him, I think it would be hard for him to make the case that he belongs on that other category.
Yeah, for sure.
Although you can't deny it.
He's got all the tools. It's just will he unlock and learn to use those tools properly?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we obviously have now on the other side of things, we had Miami winning. I think we might have had that settled last week, but
I think it was too.
I think it was just Boston and Milwaukee. So Boston ended up beating Milwaukee. Rough game one. No Marcus Smart. No Al Horford. Game.
Oh, you mean in the Eastern Finals now?
Yeah, sorry, Miami Boston game one.
What a fun game that was. Jeez.
Jimmy Butler went absolutely bananas. Game two, a little bit of a different story. We have Boston bouncing back.
Not just a little, my friend.
Marcus Smart played phenomenal last night. I was super impressed, especially coming off of injury. I think he had 13 assists, 5 triples, 20-something plus points. Great game.
9 rebounds, 3 steals, 1 block.
There you go. I was gonna say a few steals, some good defensive stats, good amount of rebounds. Did pretty much everything they could hope for. This series now looks a little different. Obviously, those two are pretty big pieces for the Celtics, but 1-1. Boston got the split in Miami. How do you predict this panning out going back to Boston next couple games?
Well, for the series, I think Boston has this, and then this was even after game one, I still felt like Boston had this series. Because going back last round, we were both saying how we felt that whoever wins the Milwaukee-Boston series is probably going to represent the East, and I still feel that way. But I'll tell you one thing. So if I had to call this, I'd say Boston in 6. But Miami, and this probably goes without saying, but Miami needs to win one in Boston.
Right, okay.
They really do. If they don't, I think they might get, a gentleman's sweep there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think these next 2 games are really, really big for Miami. I think these are must-win. One of these is a must-win game.
And I think Miami will win one of those. I think they will. PJ Tucker is a
Well,
looks like he might be out. That's a big time loss. But I still gonna give Miami another game. Because I love Jimmy Butler, man. I mean, I think if I had to pick a favorite player in the league, it'd probably be DeMar. Uh, just from the from the Raptors stuff. But if it's not DeMar, I think it's Jimmy Butler, man. I just love the guy. I love how he plays. I love how he carries himself. I love that he's like kind of the villain, but kind of not too.
Yeah,
I love it
for sure.
I love it.
And he soaks that up and embraces it.
That's it.
What do you think in terms of Miami? Like, who's gonna be the make or break piece for them? I've been pretty impressed with what I've seen from Duncan last game. Like, he seems like he's attacking more. He didn't play a lot, but
he played in garbage time.
But the stretch that he is playing, my gut's like I kind of want him out there more. Who do you think on Miami is gonna like? Obviously, we haven't really had a taste of Lowry dealing with his hamstring issue.
Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna play. It doesn't. I'm starting to lose confidence in that.
But who's the piece on Miami that really needs to stick out? Because obviously Jimmy Butler can Jimmy Butler, but as we saw in Game 2, like you're probably going to need someone else to step up, do something, kind of play the hero a bit. Who do you think could it be? Pun intended. Tyler Hero. Does he need to be that guy for them?
Yes, but I think more importantly, Bam Adebayo needs to show up.
Okay.
Because if you the last couple of games, even when they won, it's like, where's he been?
Yeah.
At all. And I know that he's like, they shouldn't be counting on him to be a 20-point scorer.
Right.
I'm sure he can do that.
Not really his job though.
But but what I'm saying is he's got to show up like across the board. Like, he can get those assists. He can get those rebounds. He can get those blocks. Like, be a difference maker, whether that's on defense, fine, because Miami, they need to win with defense. That's what you saw in Game 1, right? They slowed them down starting in the third quarter. Yeah, they went on a run, but they're stopping them. Mm-hmm. They're stopping the Celtics. And if they can do that, then I think they have a chance. But they're going to need everybody. It's not – oh, man. It's going to be tough. Boston looks really, really good. More credit to Boston here than I'm trying to – say that the Heat don't have enough or anything. Like, it's Boston looks really, really good.
Who's the best player in this series?
Right now, I still feel like it's Jimmy. I think you'll probably disagree with me on that, but right now I still think it's Jimmy. And the reason I say that is because I realize a lot of people want to probably say Tatum, and I don't want to take anything away from Tatum. He's spectacular. The one thing that I would like to see from Tatum is I'd like him to when he's not, like, if he's not getting those threes to drop, I want him to do more besides that, and that hasn't been too much of a question because he's been hitting them. Mm-hmm. But and I will give him credit. He's doing an excellent job of like the drive and dish. But I'd like to see him get to the line more. I'd like to see him do a little bit more dirty work on the defensive end. And I know it's a lot to ask. I know it is because he's doing so much on offense. But if you're going to be the superstar, you're going to be asked of a lot. Mm-hmm. And also, maybe by the end of the series, I'll be saying, my tune will be different. But right now, that's how I feel.
Cool. I mean, mine would be between the two as well, Tatum or Jimmy. But I was curious on who you'd pick. As of now. Okay, so you're saying Boston probably in 6. Miami must win one of the next 2 games in Boston. Let's talk about the other conference finals. Dallas Golden State. Obviously, first game for Dallas wasn't the most ideal. Golden State looked locked in as probably we've ever seen them. I was super impressed with what I saw defensively from Draymond. I just thought he just looked unreal in game 1.
Yeah, I love Draymond Green, man.
Is the Dallas Excite train do you have any type of feeling in you that this could be a big disappointment for the Mavericks? Like, is there any because I mean, obviously,
are they going to get swept?
Is that a possibility? Is that on the table here? Because tonight I think is a huge game for them. Obviously, I think we need to see a bounce back game for them. If we see anything along the lines of a blowout tonight, I'm not feeling good about Dallas's chances at all. But I think if Dallas can bounce back tonight and put up a fight, even if it's maybe a tough loss, I'll feel a little bit better. But I'm just not seeing enough. Like, I didn't see enough. Like, Dinwiddie seemed like he was playing well in game one. I just didn't see enough of it. Brunson seemed like he was struggling to find a shot. Obviously, Luka went scoreless, I think, in the third for a bit. Golden State will wear you out, and they'll play so smart. And we're like, I mean, what I saw from Wiggins and Poole in game one gives me just all the confidence in the world that I'm like, I just don't see, like, now that we have these 4 teams set in stone, I see exactly what it is. I find it very hard to believe that one of these other 3 teams is beating Golden State in a 7-game series.
I'm with you on that, although I think Boston will put up a hell of a fight if it is in fact Boston that makes it to the finals. And I might be getting ahead of myself because it's only been 1 game with Golden State, but I'm feeling close to where you are. I would have before that game I would have said Warriors in 6. The tricky thing though is that I also feel like if this game goes to 7, which I don't, with this series goes to 7, which I don't think it will, but if it did, I would have a hard time not switching my pick over to the Mavs. If by some miracle they make it to 7 games,
right.
But I don't think that will happen. I do think the Warriors are better team. They may not, I think you could argue who has the best player on the floor right now, but Warriors are just, it's how do they say the sum of all the parts or whatever. It's just that's really tough, man. If Curry's not having a great game, you still have Clay, Wiggins, Poole, just like you said. You're right. I mean, what are you gonna do? I think the problem with the Mavs.
They're so top heavy, man. They're so top heavy.
But they also they depend on their 3-point so much. They live and die by it, quite literally, and they died from it on in game 1. You see what happens when they're just not hitting them.
Yeah, and they'll keep shooting them.
Well, yeah, they have to. That's what got them to the dance, right? So they got to keep going with it. I'm not knocking it. Like it's the equalizer, eh? That's how teams that we think
live and die
overall really don't have any business being in the conference finals.
That's how they're
as far as the Mavericks, that's how they get there.
You're right. Yeah, you're totally right.
So that's why I'll give them a couple games in this series because I think at some point they're gonna hit them, and I think when they go back to Dallas, I think Luka's gonna put on a show again. But the Warriors have so much talent, and more importantly, the experience that the Warriors have. Like, let's see, we're talking about Luka being compared to LeBron James. Who's a team that has the most experience playing against the LeBron James in the last 10 years?
Exactly.
They've done it.
Exactly.
So
they've game planned for a player of this caliber.
They know what they're doing.
And quite
I have a hard time seeing Dallas win this.
And quite frankly, Luka doesn't have a Kyrie or he doesn't have a second piece, a second killer.
Yeah, you can argue he doesn't even have a Kevin Love.
No, exactly. So that's where it just feels a bit like Dallas is in shambles here, and I'm like, I love Luka. I think like the fact that he beat Phoenix, I'm like, you've checked off a couple more boxes in my book earlier than I thought you would. So like all the props in the world. It's just when you look at Golden State, it just really does feel like
a powerhouse,
different caliber team. Yeah, and to me, this is starting to feel like probably the finals. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but this is looking like it could definitely be a Steph Curry legacy defining finals.
Legacy defining?
Well, not legacy defining, but kind of like a legacy play, like in the sense that
Finals MVP would look nice.
Yeah, it's kind of the last box he has to check when you think about it. Like he's won scoring titles.
He never won a Finals MVP.
Never won a Finals MVP. He's won scoring titles. He's won MVP. He's got to the Finals. He's a 3-time champion. He lost the 2 Finals MVPs to Durant in their back-to-back, and he obviously lost that one to Iguodala that one year. So I think this is kind of like the final box to check for Curry, the final thing that he has left to kind of really, the final accolade, I guess, to add to his resume. But when you really think about this, and I was kind of thinking on this last night, a Finals MVP win for Steph Curry here And especially just coming off of what happened to the Nets and to Kevin Durant this year in round one, and just the ability of the Warriors to bounce back and look like they never really missed a beat. Going back to the Toronto Raptors championship year when they were in the finals and they lost, Kevin Durant and Klay to injury. Kind of being able to recoup from that and revitalize the team and to become a new team, right? Because you're obviously not the same team as you were with Kevin Durant. You kind of have to remold and keep what makes you great and kind of adjust with your weaknesses and your flaws. But I think, to me, what's crazy about this is like how much of a storyline or how much of a statement this will be for Steph Curry. Like, especially with Durant, like I said, going out round one, leaving to go win on his own. And if Steph can pull this off and win a Finals MVP, like, you got to think that would bump him up a few spots on the greatest of all time list, right? Or on the Mount Rushmore list, you'd think, right? Like, I personally, I'd say inevitably it kind of has to happen if he does it. But is it crazy to say that Steph Curry is moving into, I mean, personally for me, yeah, I might even already have him here, but like top 10 all time?
Is Steph in the top 10 all time?
Yeah, and is this a finals win that could elevate him into that or beyond? Like, is this because to me, when I look at it, it really feels like Steph Curry hasn't missed a beat. It really feels like he's gotten better. And I mean, there's clearly like the Warriors are clearly the Warriors, right? Like, they're clearly a great team. So you can't give Steph all the credit. Like, you still got Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole and Wiggins and Draymond and like all this depth. Great coaching, great development, great moves. Like, even you got to think back a couple years ago when they lost Durant. You do a sign and trade to get D'Angelo Russell, then you trade Russell for Andrew Wiggins. So just a really well-ran franchise that's clearly their consistency and stability has gotten them to this point of having a team with this amount of depth. But without Steph Curry, this team isn't Golden State, right? So how much of this is a legacy move for Curry, and how important is this to Curry's legacy? Like, it's obviously established, but this could be like a pretty big shift in the Curry narrative, at least I think, because it's entering it. Not that it's not already there, but it really is entering like an undeniable state for this guy, and I really just don't think he's done anytime soon. Like, the way he plays the game is very, it's so IQ based, right? Like, it's so much mental. It's so much I'll outsmart you and I don't need to physically outdo you. And obviously there's a lot of running and moving around off ball, but I could see Curry probably playing at this level for several more years, right? So,
well, when you get paid $50 million,
yeah, you'd hope you'd be around for a while, right? But, and the scary thing is, too, the way the Warriors are constructed, like, they could keep this team together for, like, what's Wiggins? Is Wiggins probably the first one that's done in terms of contract, or would it be Draymond? I'm trying to think of
if it's not one or the other, they're at the same time. But I mean, they have one of the largest tax bills in NBA history, and the real scary thing is when Jordan Poole comes up.
Right. Can they afford to keep Poole?
I don't know if they can afford everybody.
Right.
I think they probably let Wiggins go and
right.
And keep Poole.
Right.
But they're going to have to make a tough choice at some point.
Do you think that my favorite right now with the teams remaining is I say Golden State in the finals no matter who they play in 6 is what I'm feeling right now. But I'm rooting for Dallas. Like, I want to see Dallas beat them. Yeah. So that's kind of like
it's funny because I feel like that about both series. Like, I picked the Warriors out west, but I'm rooting for Dallas, and I picked Celtics out east, but I'm rooting for Miami.
Cool.
So it's kind of funny that it works out that way, but I'm with you.
Do you think that, like, how do I say this? Do you think that if Miami or Boston Like, is there enough firepower for them to get through each other and then go play Golden State? Like
I think Boston. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're so okay. The main reason is because they're so well built. Like I was talking about Jason Tatum, why I think Jimmy is right now the best player in the series and all that. Like one of the again, I'm not trying to knock Jason Tatum. All right, that's not my intention. I know it might come off that way, but that's not my intention. But an important thing to consider as well is that Jason Tatum doesn't necessarily have to, because for example, Jaylen Brown or Marcus Smart are going to do that dirty work, and not because they're like, oh, we're gonna, we don't think that he can do it. It's just that there's such a well-built team, and everybody's so nicely put in their roles that it's okay. It's okay, and everybody excels at what they do. And then you have a guy like Grant Williams that turns into Kevin Durant in a Game 7 when nobody wants to guard him.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Like that, great championship teams, magic like that happens because everybody just knows where they're supposed to be. And so, to answer your question there, like I think Boston is the most well equipped out of the teams that are left to hang with the Warriors. And while I would probably go, no, I think I'd go 7. I think I'd say Warriors in 7 if they played Boston.
Wow.
Right now, just the way I feel.
Yeah.
But I could see it going to 6-2 for sure. And I would pick the Warriors like you. But I think Boston is really, really well set up here. Barring injuries, knock on wood, all that. And to give Miami some credit too, I think if Miami did have Lowry at full strength, PJ Tucker at full strength, I think it wouldn't be as easy a call between them two. But Boston is they're stacked, like I keep thinking this is stupid, but in The Dark Knight Rises when the cops are trying to chase Batman or whatever, and they're like, oh, he got away. And he's like, you let them get away, and they're like, he's got a lot of firepower.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about the Celtics.
Yeah.
They got a lot of firepower.
They really do.
They
really do.
Shit.
And they seem to be like growing as a team. Like you really see that team chemistry and just like their cohesiveness as a team. Like I think it was just like even with what we said about Grant Williams the other day. Like he never in his life led the Celtics in points or shot attempts, even for that matter. I think
makes sense. Yeah.
So to have him step out in Game 7 and do that, and just be so locked in, and he has honestly been such a big piece for them this playoffs.
Oh man!
Defensively, just vocally communicating with the team. He seems like from what you hear about him, he's like the guy on the team who doesn't know how to shut up, but you kind of need those guys. Like Jeff Van Gundy even kind of pointed that out the other night. Like you need a guy like that on your team. And
100%.
He just seems like a super big chemistry, knows his role. Really reminds me of like a PJ Tucker, just the way he plays.
Or Al Horford, right? Like look at his vet.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's just Al Horford's shadow, and he's been Al Horford's shadow.
Yeah.
Right? And it's paying off, man. Mm-hmm. It's paying off.
Mm-hmm. And how good has Horford been this series? And Time Lord looked like he got his feet under him a bit. Coming back. With Robert Williams, like I love Robert Williams, but you can kind of see where the limitations comes in. Oh yeah.
Right. Where if you just swap him out with Horford or Grant Williams, like you do lose a bit on probably more than a bit on defense, but that offensive stretching of the floor,
helps,
especially for a guy like Tatum.
Definitely. But they have that versatility where they can mix and match, right?
Exactly.
Which is what makes them such a scary team. Okay, so you're saying so what do you think the Dallas Golden State series goes to then? Do you think
I'm going to say 6.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Golden State in 6.
Okay.
But I'll also put a little twist on it there. Maybe, I don't know. You tell me if it's cheap or not. But if they go to 7, I'll switch my
I like that. I'm fine with that. I don't see it going to 7, but I really need to see what happens tonight. Like I don't want to count out Dallas after one bad game, but
of course,
it's just the Warriors. It just feels like when I watched the game, it was like, okay, this isn't gonna change from the Warriors. Like this. So Dallas, yes,
It's like a cat playing with a mouse.
Yeah, and it's so much like yes, Dallas can play well and hit their threes, but is that gonna stop the Warriors from playing like this? No,
I don't think so.
So that's where it's tough for me to put Dallas in that conversation.
Okay.
So
you don't give them a game, or
no? I'll give them a game for sure. But dude, call me crazy. I could see this be done in 5 or 6, probably maybe even 5. Like I don't know if, because the problem I have, it's not even Steph and Draymond and Clay. It's like Wiggins and Jordan Poole. Like those two to me, especially what I saw in Game 1. When Wiggins comes out,
Wiggins did a great job on Luka.
Defensively too. But I was thinking just offensively. Like when Wiggins is firing like that, and goes into like pure shot creator, pure scorer mode. And then you have Jordan Poole come in and just absolutely dismantle you and get any shot in the world. And then it's
what a luxury.
On top of that, you have to deal with fucking Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Like, dude, good luck. Because there's just nothing you can do. If 3 of those guys are hitting, 2 of those guys are hitting for you, it's like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna double team Jordan Poole and leave Steph Curry open on the perimeter? Like, you can't do that. You're gonna double team Steph and leave Jordan Poole or Clay open? You can't do that. You're gonna leave Wiggins open in the corner? Probably not. So you're so limited with what you can do, how you can switch, how you can help. Like, there's too many variables for the Warriors, and it just feels like a Warriors year. Like, as much as it's like, oh man, new team gonna win it this year, Miami, Boston, Dallas, who's this gonna, like, nah, new team, as much as we want to say it, Golden State.
It's been feeling like a Golden State year.
Yeah, so it's just like, I don't know, man. I just don't see them losing this at this point, barring injury, obviously. But yeah, no, that's just the gut feeling I'm getting. I wouldn't even be surprised if they win tonight and it's not pretty. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm hoping not.
I think Warriors win tonight. I'm not sure it's a blowout, but I think Warriors win like more easily than not tonight. But I think the Mavs will bounce back in Dallas. Yeah. Obviously, they'll have to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about NBA draft lottery was the other night. We'll change course here for a bit. Orlando gets the first pick. First pick since, I want to say, was it Shaq? First overall?
No, they had Dwight
Howard. That's what I was thinking of. Dwight Howard and Shaq were their last 2 number 1 picks. So they've had a good track history of picking at the number 1 spot. There's a few different guys. I'm not.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
It's not a set number 1 pick this year. I think a lot of people would probably lean Chet Holgrim.
Can I tell you why I love it that Orlando wins it?
Yeah, sure.
Because whether they go with Chet or what was it
Jabari Smith? Yeah.
Which honestly I don't know who I would go with. I think at this point with those two, and I haven't done a lot of research, but from what I can see, it's whether you're going with the upside or you're going for the sure thing.
Right.
And I don't know what the right thing is, because a 6'10" guy that can shoot like that there's no way you make a mistake there. But then Chet could be something special.
Different.
Right?
For sure. That's a really, really very good synopsis of how to break down the first pick, like what their dilemma is.
It's going to be interesting. And plus the, what was it, Paolo in Duke?
Paolo Banchero, yeah. He
looks pretty fucking good too.
So it's those 3 in the top 3. They probably say Paolo is probably going to fall to 3rd just based on Smith and Chet's upside, but Paolo is definitely in the top 3 probably. So it's a very top 3 heavy draft again. But I mean, I think you broke it down beautifully with, do you go for the sure thing in Jabari Smith, who's probably the most ready NBA player today? Or do you go with the guy who in Chet Holgrim, who is taller, stretches the floor just as well, and defensively more imposing because of just the wingspan, and yeah, like you said, probably just the more closer thing to a unicorn type player. Both are very good.
Should probably go with the high upside.
I think Chet,
because of the position they're not really going anywhere. Like, do they need somebody that is for sure going to help them win 10 more games next year, or should they go with the home run? And I think you got to go with the home run. You know, I think so.
Right. And the thing with Chet, too, that as much as I want to say, like, I don't really see him as a development as much as people think. So as much as it's like, you draft Jabari, will you win more games? I'm not even too sure about that. Like, I
don't know. It's his body that I'm worried about.
Right. So that's the thing is, like, that's going to scare you. But, I mean, it would... He's a very shifty, very smart, very, very, very underrated in terms of how mobile he is for his size. That's the thing with Chet. I think that, to me, slides him into that number one spot is that his mobility and what he can do for his size is very unseen. It's not like you're looking at like a Pokuševski where, like, Chet has explosion, which is, you know, what makes him so high upside. I think the thing with Smith is, like you said, it's more of a sure thing. I don't doubt that Jabari Smith is going to be an all-star one day. I would be pretty surprised if he's not. I think he is got all the tools to be an NBA-ready player. I think it's, like you said, though, it's the higher upside versus a little bit more of the sure thing. Now, I think the interesting thing here, though, is if you look at Paulo in the top three, he could be one of those guys where you're like, oh, damn, you know what? Like, having Paulo fall to us because of these other guys was a pretty big blessing. You know, I don't think he offers as much upside in terms of shooting.
I feel that way about like 6 guys in the top 10.
Right. So there's like Shaedon Sharp.
Honestly.
Yeah, there's a few really
quite a few
different pieces. Now, they say it's a top 3 draft, and I have to touch on this because I've obviously been a little bit vocal to criticize Sacramento. But Sacramento did move up in the draft. Unfortunately, they moved up to 4, which was probably like 1 spot shy of where they wanted to be. But I guess so it's kind of ironic, and I found it a little funny. It's like, damn, okay, they got lucky, but they didn't get quite lucky enough.
It's okay.
But
it'll be okay.
But there's a lot of talent in this draft.
Now I hope they get Chet just to rub it in your face.
I mean,
then he flops.
that would be great, but there's just no way they get Chet at 4. I think though, like, it's gonna be interesting to see. I wonder if Can
I tell you first? Can I tell you why I like Orlando getting number 1?
Yeah, sure.
Because we've talked a bit about this. I got a lot of interest in throwing some money at Mo Bamba.
Sure,
and I think it's
a good point.
Almost a sure thing now that they're not going to re-sign him.
Right. I mean, like, if you have Chet Holgrim
they
coming
got
in,
so much. Whoever they pick, Chet or
Jabari
whatever,
Smith.
they got so much. There's so much of a backlog in the front court now that I think it's almost a guarantee that they're going to let him walk. So maybe a sign and trade.
Yeah.
Be easier to do with them.
Yeah.
So that's why I like that they got number 1. I think that's a little exciting as a Raptors fan.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's like, especially if they go with Chet, like, Bamba's not really going to fit in that rotation anymore. Unfortunately, it's just that there's no way you're going to prioritize developing Bamba, who you've had on your roster for, last 4 years, 3 years, when you got a guy like Chet, who's probably going to be better player in Bamba in his first year, I would predict.
You know who would I would even take a swing at?
Who?
Jonathan Isaac.
That's an interesting one because we haven't seen him play since that ACL injury, but I don't really know what's going on with that. If they have,
don't know what's going on, but he's also in that front court logjam, and I know he's not quite exactly what we're looking for as far as a big man, but I think he's 7 foot.
He would be a great fit.
I don't mind moving him over to the center position. Maybe he's like a skinny center, but okay.
He would be a scary fit on the
It'd
Raptors.
Be interesting.
What do you need? Like, how does Orlando value him, and how much do they want for these pieces? That's what I want to know.
That's the big question. But the reason I would kind of kick the tires on that is because, like, how much value could he have right now? He's on what would be a reasonable contract if he played. I think he's like 17, 18 million a year or something like that, which is like, that would be reasonable if he was playing. But since he hasn't played, and it's the obvious, front court logjam that everybody in the league can see, I think his value is like probably as low as it's ever been, and I think you could capitalize on that. So that's what I'd be looking at. Plus, the Magic GM is Masai's old assistant GM, so I
saw that.
Got him on speed dial.
OKC has the number 2 pick.
Gotta love that. What the hell is Sam Presti doing, bro?
Do you think my gut feeling here is like I've seen a lot of mocks say Jabari at 1, Chet at 2.
I mean, Chet seems like that seems to be exactly what OKC would want.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Right.
Doesn't he feel like he fits the OKC mold almost perfectly? Like slot him in with Poku and
Yeah.
But I think I'm pretty sure they'd be pretty happy with getting Jabari Smith. Like my gut feeling is it's kind of those two people want, and then Paulo's kind of like the consolation prize at the top 3.
Yeah. I almost feel like almost okay, not quite, but I almost feel like I would rather be OKC because you don't have to make that decision on
That's
number one
such
anymore.
a good
And you're
point.
just like, whatever, I'll clean up. You can't make a mistake.
Right. It's like you're either getting Cheddar or Jabari probably, and at that point it's like, okay, well, we're just gonna pick with we're gonna deal with whatever cards we're dealt with here. And then it's also like you hear about how hard it is for these teams to trade up in the draft these days.
Although Houston looks like they might be interested in making a little trade there. Houston's what, third?
I think they're 4 or third. Yeah, 4 is Sacramento. So Houston's trying to trade up. I would assume they're trying to get either Smith or Chet or Jabari Smith.
No, I read that they're trying to trade out of that third.
Oh, really? So they're not.
Yeah.
So that means they're probably not interested in Paolo then.
Well, they got Christian Wood on a very, very nice deal. But I think it might just be a smoke show, you know.
Yeah, true. And they could,
I could see them go either way, really. I'm not sure what Houston's going with.
Maybe they like Shaden Sharp or something at pick 5, and they want to explore. Although that seems a little weird, like Jalen Green and
you can never have enough shooting, I guess.
Do you think we see a big trade on draft night? Do you think?
I don't know. Now that you mention it, maybe yeah. Sure, let's get excited. Yeah, I think something could happen. It does feel like
New Orleans ended up keeping that pick within the top 10. That's pretty scary.
Keeping the pick, they're stealing the pick.
That could be a nice little piece for them. Like, I mean, just and seeing how they've drafted, like with Herb Jones and Jose Alderado, I think it's last name. Last year was they're clearly their scouting team is clearly putting in the work.
Man, I think is there any other team in the league in the last however many years where the outlook for the team at the start of the year and at the end of the year has been such a night and day change?
You gotta give credit to
Griffin.
David Griffin. It's it's a really good way to put it, but their trajectory at the start of the year versus just thinking of like that first few weeks with the Zion injury. And,
everybody's crying about it, and deservedly so, right?
Right.
And they're not going anywhere. I think they started the league with the year with like a 10-game losing streak or something like that.
Pretty sure they were the worst team in the league at the very start of the year. And then to go to making the play-in, winning.
Looking good. Like they pushed Phoenix, man.
Playing
if
Phoenix.
They would have won game 6, I think Phoenix would have been in trouble.
Right. Tied 2-2. No Zion. Adding next year Herb Jones. Those guys are all going to take a step up. CJ's the perfect piece you needed for that team.
Yeah, what a fantastic trade.
Ingram is taking steps that we want to see. Probably under the radar for a lot of people because I don't think a lot of people watched probably that Pelicans Sun series. Casuals, you would say, but Ingram looking like that guy can be that guy one day.
CJ McCollum just giving him so much confidence.
Right, and then you add a healthy Zion Williamson into that mix and a top 10 pick. Scary. So they're in a great position. You got to be happy for New Orleans, going from
and that trade, even though this was not during the year, that trade for Jonas.
Yes.
That's a really nice trade. I think Memphis was just trying to be a little too cute there.
Steven Adams, right?
Yeah, that was a really nice trade.
I don't really know what Memphis was thinking on that.
So there was draft picks involved, and I think it was something like Memphis was moving up like 4 or 5 spots in last year's draft or something.
Who did they take?
Zaire Williams, I'm pretty sure.
Who's been pretty good for them, actually. But, I mean, was it worth losing JV? I don't know.
I don't know. JV looks really good.
Yeah, and JV could have been a really big piece for them versus like a Golden State, right? Like, I don't know. That's an interesting one.
Oh, you mean for Memphis? Yeah. Right.
For Memphis, just go to the semi-conferences. Like, don't you think JV would have helped them tremendously on the glass and second chance opportunities? I don't know. So that's a weird one, but you see a lot of teams doing that, right? Like they tread carefully with guys that they don't think they're going to be able to pay. or they don't want to pay. Like look at OKC and Harden trading for what was it, Jeremy Lamb or something weird to cut salary because they didn't think they would be able to keep him. So yeah, you see like moves like that take place, but I'm hoping draft day we get some exciting stuff. Maybe like a Bradley Beal move. Maybe we see like I would assume Harden, just looking at that deal and that player option, I'm assuming he's probably opting in for one more year.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't see why he wouldn't at whatever.
Well, I guess if they're not offering him, then yeah. But I think they're going to offer him an extension.
Yeah, so maybe that's so that's
or like scrap it. Deny your player option. We'll offer you a contract.
Right.
And it probably in both sides' best interest because
what else are you going to
definitely can't ask for a max right now.
Right.
But you can give him that long-term security as much as it would hurt.
Right, but will he feel some type of way that you're not offering him the max? Maybe,
but
you got to tread carefully.
I feel some type of way about him disappearing in Game 6.
For sure. I'm not saying we don't have your doubts, but like look what happened with Jimmy Butler and Philly. That's the only thing. Like they've in the sense that they've been in this situation where they fucked around and didn't pay Jimmy. Look what happened. Do they learn from that, or do they think back on that and go, okay, we can't dick around with Harden here. We got to pay him. Right? Like, that's the only thing I'm kind of like... And it was clearly a big narrative with Jimmy.
The thing with Jimmy, though, it wasn't so much like they did end up paying somebody, but it wasn't Jimmy. So like they didn't have any problem with the money, and so they didn't want to give it to Jimmy.
But wasn't the whole narrative like they paid Tobias over him, basically?
Al Horford, actually.
Really? Because I remember seeing like at the end of the playoffs, he was saying like, I guess it just depends. I don't know what they told Jimmy though. Like what they clearly said something to Jimmy that rubbed him the wrong way, right? Like clearly, because he's still bitter about it. Like after as he's walking out of the games, he's mumbling under his breath, right? So like, do you think that plays into Philly's decision making? It's obviously
screwed up, and
that's what I'm trying to get. Yeah,
sure. And I mean Daryl Morey, he has to keep him. They traded a lot for him,
right?
They still like Ben Simmons, whatever that's going to amount to be, which could be something substantial for sure.
Right.
But they traded picks also.
Right.
Like that's
there's a lot.
They traded a lot of their future.
Mm-hmm.
The process is looking a little hazy right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's, I mean, you gotta give credit to Joel Embiid though. He's clearly taking steps.
No, I just mean the whole, like for them to go from the Sam Hinkie years and all that tanking to now,
right?
I'm wondering if it really was worth it. I don't know.
Well, I think it's also relative to the picks you get, how you draft, who's the like when does the time frame line up for you in your draft? Like for instance, like if you're to get instead of a Ben Simmons, if you're to get Trae Young or a Luka Doncic, how does that look? If you're to get a different caliber player that blends well with Embiid earlier on, how does the process look? So it's like it's a little relevant to who they got and how it panned out, but I think at the same time though, the NBA is like incentivizing teams to tank less, because isn't there the chances they're thinning out, right? It's that the bottom three have the same chances, right? So it doesn't matter if you finish last or second to last or third to last. Right.
Might even be the bottom four, but I think it's the bottom three,
which I think helps.
It helps things
to some extent.
I don't know what though. You know what? I can't even get into that because I don't really know what I would suggest.
Right.
But I would agree. I think you're going like I do think they're making steps, but I still do think it's a bit of a problem. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely nowhere near the problem that it was like, let's say 5 years ago.
Right. And then you also have scenarios like look at Detroit. Detroit kind of got screwed in the draft this year.
True. Yeah, they did.
Like they finished what? I think they were
I actually
two.
Feel like Portland kind of got screwed.
Portland too, yeah. Portland and
Considering
Detroit.
They just fucking folded everything.
I know. And it's one of those things where it's like, damn, okay, so like you can lose a lot of games, but you're really not guaranteed And then, I mean, obviously Orlando lost a ton of games, but like, look at Detroit. Detroit got absolutely mangled. I think they dropped like 4 or 5 spots in the draft. I think were they predicted top 4?
Were they the worst team in the league, or like top 2 at least?
Yeah, I think they were predicted top 2, and they ended up getting 8th pick or something. Like that's pretty.
Detroit, they're the 5th.
5th, okay, so 5th, but they were supposed to be top 2. I thought. Like that's
their odds, yeah.
So that's where I'm like, yeah, not so much of a guarantee, and like would have been interesting to see if we could have paired Cade with someone there, but I mean.
Well, I think they're gonna still get a player at 5.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'll be good. It's I mean they're probably hoping for that like generational talent, but I guess they got Cade last year with the number 1 pick, so you can't, beggars can't be choosers. It should be interesting to see how the draft plays out. I'm pretty excited. I'm probably going to start doing a little bit more research on the depth of the class.
Yeah, I definitely will too, especially the back end, because I want to see who the Raptors go after.
Right, and there's a lot of talent in these drafts. Like as we go throughout the years.
You know who I want right now for the Raptors?
Who?
And maybe he's not even in the draft, but I think he is. Shit. I can't remember his first name, but it's, we have Justin Champagny?
Yep.
He has a twin brother who's 2 inches taller than him.
Oh, really? Didn't even know he existed.
His name, oh man, it's not Justin. His name might be like Jalen or something, but it's close. But anyways, that's what I want.
Cool.
Is he
projected?
Maybe, I don't know even if he's projected anything. Maybe we'll get him, maybe he'll be undrafted or whatever. But I hope we give him a good hard look, because for one, it'd be kind of fun to have brothers on the team. But I'm a real big Justin Champagny guy, Julian Champagny, that's his name. Although, he didn't get a lot of playing time this year, but he showed a lot with what he could do. And if I could get the same player but a couple inches taller, sign me up.
Yeah. For sure. And the Raptors, so they don't have a first-round pick, do they? Or is it
they have a very, very early second-round pick. Okay. So basically with that trade for Thaddeus Young, in hindsight now we can analyze it. I think we would have had the 20th pick, or 21st, 22nd, something like that. But I think it's the 20th, but we moved down to the 32nd pick, or 33rd.
Okay. So...
Actually, you know what? I'm not even sure, but I think it's at the very least it's a top 5 in the second round. So,
so hopefully Masai can snipe someone out of there. I'm sure.
I think so. And I kind of like, they say like money wise, business wise, it's better to have like, let's say 31st, 32nd pick in the second round rather than like the 30th pick,
right? Because
the way the money's guaranteed. So that could work out for us too. But I think at that point it's a crapshoot.
Right. You gotta
I'm confident.
Gotta snipe someone and get lucky or a bit.
So I think they will though. I got a pretty good feeling about it. I'm excited.
But it should be a fun draft. I think the combine was today actually, so I was curious to go look at some of the combine numbers and just compare. I always kind of like doing that and just get a bit of a preview. I think the combine is going on an hour or so ago, so I saw footage on Instagram, I think. So I'm curious to see like the metrics, see the verticals, see the speed, see all that, see the shots, and yeah, just kind of have fun. Like last year was such a fun draft, and this year it's probably not as hyped, but I think it's there's a lot of good talent to look forward to.
I think so too, man. I think there is a lot of good talent. Like I haven't dove in or anything, but I did have a quick look, and I was just kind of looking. I think I looked at a mock draft that had like a little breakdown of every player with a bit of stats and all that. And I was pretty impressed with just the top 10, like in general. Like I was like, all these guys sound pretty good.
And there's always a guy in the top 10 who, or like maybe not top 10, but like top 20 who who just goes above and beyond what you would expect. Like there's always going to be a Tyrese Halliburton, a Donovan Mitchell. There's always going to be one of those players like a Tyler Hero who slips.
Hey, Jimmy Butler went 30th.
Jokic second round, right? So there's always possibilities and there's always talent. There's always a guy waiting to prove why he should be a top 10 player, top 5 player, top 3 player, top whatever. So that's the exciting part of the draft and seeing how good these guys are at a young age. I'm really excited to see Jabari Smith and Chet Holgrim play in the NBA. I just think that's a really fun little. I think that it's a fun draft because they're very similar players in terms of like both being stretch bigs, but like you said, one's more of your sure thing, one's more of your do we take the chance. So it'd be interesting to see what Orlando does and how those two fare. That could maybe be a little bit of a little Luka Trey kind of rivalry going on between those two. Would be a fun little kind of storyline throughout the year. So, and it's always fun to see new rookies play. But I really just I've done a bit of research. I've been pretty big on Chet for the last couple of years. I've been actually following him since high school. Just been pretty.
Which was
2 years ago.
A year before, or
2 years ago, yeah. Two.
Oh, he's been in college for 2 years.
No. He Gonzaga at 1 year, but I was following him since like grade 11. He's been kind of just like because he's been so physically different, right? Yeah. So he's had a lot of high school footage, and there's been a lot of hype on Chet for a while. So I really just think I'm not too worried about his frame. Like I know there's issues, but I think I could see him coming in and having a really good year, especially defensively in the NBA. Like I think he's got the frame to really just be one of the best shot blockers in the NBA. And the fact that he can hit the three at such a high clip, I think he's going to be just one of those future style players that's really exciting. And I think what separates him from a guy like Porzingis maybe is like the mental. Like he has the killer instinct that we've seen it. So I don't know. I'm excited for him. I think he's the real deal. I don't know enough about Jabari Smith yet, but everything I've heard and read is like this guy's a bucket. Like he will average 20 in no time. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, man. I'm excited. I would assume the draft's in June, late June, July maybe.
Usually, yeah.
But
usually end of June.
We'll probably do a special episode on the draft specifically when we get closer. Yeah. So we got Dallas and Golden State game 2 tonight. That should be fun.
So you saying Dallas or Golden State?
I'm saying Golden State again tonight. That's just what my gut says. But I hope Dallas wins. I'm rooting for Luka. Like every time Luka's out there scoring, hitting threes, I'm genuinely like out here cheering and excited. Like I want him to pull it off. I think if he
no matter what happens, I think he is going to bounce back tonight.
Yeah, that would be, and I'm hoping for a big game, and I'm hoping for a close game. Like I just want to see a good game, so that's what I'm kind of hoping for. But I'll go with Golden State tonight. But hopefully it's close, and I'm hoping for a big game from Luka. And I want to see Dinwiddie, man. I want to see him come out balling early because like this guy's a very underrated player to me, and I think the only thing that stops Dinwiddie from being a really good player, like a really good player, is himself and not being assertive enough. But I think Dallas is giving him all the signs, all the green lights to be like, yo, dude, you got to go. We move with you too. Like you're a big part of this. And Dinwiddie in that game 7 versus Phoenix was a huge part of that. Like a huge part of that. So I think Dinwiddie has to come out swinging tonight and look like he's ready to kill you. And whether it's like hitting the step back 3, hitting the leaner shot, whatever it is, find a way to get it done. Get it done early. That's what Dallas has to do. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I'm hoping they can come out swinging tonight. We're a bit over the hour, man. We covered conference finals, conference semis. We covered kind of finals prediction. We covered a bit of the NBA draft. Is there anything you want to touch on before we wrap today's show?
Yeah, there is. So remember, I think a couple of weeks ago at least, we talked about Charlotte firing their coach. Looks like there is some rumors about who's up. Now they've had two people that I've seen rumors about. The first one is Kenny Atkinson. We are looking out very closely right now. It looks like he had a second interview.
Interesting. Remind me, where was Atkinson?
Right now, he's an assistant in Golden State.
Where was he before that? Wasn't he a head coach?
Oh, he was the Nets head coach before Steve Nash.
Nets head coach, right? With D'Lo and Dinwiddie, right?
That's right.
Okay.
He was there for I think 3, maybe 4 years. And he was there for a while. He did an excellent job.
Did a really good job. Yeah, really good job. Interesting.
So
cool.
I like that.
I like that one.
I'll tell you what, I like the other one.
That seems like a really good fit for LaMelo. Now that I think about it, sorry.
Well, listen to this one. And it is looking like it's going to be Kenny Atkinson more than this other one.
Okay.
But the first name I saw was Mike D'Antoni.
Interesting.
And I usually wouldn't jump to liking a Mike D'Antoni hire, but just like you just said, with LaMelo Ball in mind, I kind of love that. So we'll see. But I know we had our doubts about whether it was a good time to fire the coach. What are they going to do besides? But with these two names, I'm actually pretty encouraged.
D'Antoni was the assistant on the Nets this year, right? Isn't he? That's where he is right now, I think.
I don't know. I know he was last year. I don't know if he still is, but I wouldn't be surprised. I don't really remember seeing him, but I don't remember looking too closely either.
I think just because of Steve Nash, I remember him being there.
Well, I know they had like Amari back too, and
right,
stuff.
right.
I don't know if that carried over this year.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I like the Kenny Atkinson idea a lot now that it's sitting with me.
Well, it's looking like it's him. Like from what I'm hearing, he's the one that keeps coming back.
What is there any news on Borrega? Is he gonna land a assistant job somewhere? I think he should.
If I had to guess, I think that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I hope he does. And I think a team would be smart to put him on roster because I don't know, man. It felt unfair a bit to me that firing, but
I mean, I'm with you. But if they go with one of these guys, I'm all right with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think it's a reasonable step up. Mm-hmm.
I just don't think he did anything to really warrant. Like, I only saw development from LaMelo and that team every year. I saw improvement. So that's where I'm like, I don't know. What were you hoping for? Were you hoping, was it make or break playoffs? Like, was that what you were thinking? I guess it was, but
I don't know if it was like, I don't know, period. So really, I'm just talking out of my ass right now, but it doesn't feel like they were like punishing him by firing. I think it just like
strategic move.
Yeah, like we're just ready for the next level, and they don't believe that he's the one to take him to that next level, and it's not personal, but I think it's more like that, like Dwayne Casey with the Raptors,
right?
Maybe that's not the best example, but you know what I mean.
He won Coach of the Year and got fired. Yeah, it happens, right? Like
sometimes it's like that.
Interesting. Well, we'll keep an eye out on that for sure. Good point. I didn't even read that anywhere, so I'm glad you mentioned that. That's an interesting one. Maybe we'll have some more news on that next week.
I think so.
And hopefully some more news in general, some more talking points. But yeah, man, good episode today. Talked about a lot. Excited for tonight's game. And we will catch you back next week, next Friday, 3 p.m. And we'll have hopefully a lot more to talk about.
It's a block party.
Block party, baby. Have a good one, guys. Peace.